It was the night before Thanksgiving when my sister Dana called, her voice tight with something I couldn't quite place. "Jake, you promised," she said. "Mom's expecting us both. We haven't all been together since Dad." I sighed, gripping the steering wheel tighter. The truth was, I wasn't keen on heading back to the old house. Not after everything. The memories were too heavy, the grief still raw. But Dana was right. I had promised. By the time I pulled out of my apartment complex, the sun had set, and a chill clung to the late November air. The roads were surprisingly empty for the holiday rush, but something about the quiet unsettled me. Maybe it was the way the wind howled through the trees, or the faint static on the radio that never quite tuned to any station. I brushed it off as exhaustion and kept driving. The first sign that something was wrong came about an hour into the drive. I was cruising down a lonely stretch of highway when I noticed the headlights behind me. At first, I thought nothing of it. Cars came and went. But this one? It didn't pass. It didn't fall back either. It just lingered, an uncomfortable shadow in my rearview mirror. When I switched lanes, it followed. When I slowed down, so did it. "Must be some bored trucker," I muttered, though my gut twisted in disagreement. The longer I drove, the more the tension built. Finally, I hit my brakes, pulling onto the shoulder. The vehicle behind me, a beat-up old pickup, lurched to a halt as well, its headlights glaring in my rearview mirror. I waited, expecting someone to get out, maybe a road rager looking to pick a fight. But no one came. The truck just sat there, the driver invisible behind the glare. My pulse thumped in my ears as I reached for my phone. No service, of course. Shoving the phone into my pocket, I pulled back onto the road. The truck waited a beat before following again, keeping its distance but never disappearing. After nearly an hour of this cat-and-mouse game, my nerves were frayed. The faint glow of a roadside diner appeared ahead like a beacon. Without hesitation, I swerved into the parking lot. The truck sped past, its tires screeching on the pavement, and for the first time I felt like I could breathe. The diner was a relic of another era, its flickering neon sign advertising Betty's Home Cooking. Inside, it smelled like stale coffee and burnt toast. A lone waitress eyed me as I slid into a booth, her expression unreadable. "Coffee?" she asked. "Sure," I said, glancing toward the window. The parking lot was empty now, no sign of the truck. Maybe the driver had just been messing with me. Maybe I was overreacting. But then I saw him. A man stood at the edge of the parking lot, just outside the circle of light from the diner's sign. His face was obscured by shadow, but his stance was unmistakable. He was staring right at me. "Something wrong?" the waitress asked, setting down my coffee with a clink. I shook my head, forcing a smile. "No, just tired." She nodded, unconvinced, and shuffled back to the counter. When I looked again, the man was gone. I didn't see the truck again for the rest of the drive, though I couldn't shake the feeling of being watched. By the time I pulled into the driveway of my childhood home, the sky was ink black, and the house loomed like a shadow against the trees. The porch light was on, but it didn't feel welcoming. It felt like an eye, unblinking and watchful. Inside, the smell of roasting turkey greeted me, but there was no sign of Mom or Dana. "Hello?" I called, my voice echoing in the silence. A note on the kitchen table caught my eye. In Dana's neat handwriting, it read, "Had to run to the store. Be back soon. Dinner at 6. I frowned. The grocery store? At this hour? Shaking off the unease, I dropped my bag in the hallway and settled into the living room. The clock ticked loudly, each second amplifying the empty stillness of the house. I must have dozed off because the next thing I knew, it was dark outside, and the fire in the hearth had burned low. A soft creak from upstairs snapped me fully awake. "Dana?" I called. No response. For a moment I debated whether I'd imagined the noise, but then I heard it again, a faint rustling like footsteps across the old wooden floor. Heart pounding, I grabbed the nearest weapon, a fireplace poker, and made my way upstairs. The hallway was empty, the doors to the bedrooms closed. But the noise wasn't coming from any of them. It was coming from above. It was coming from the attic. My palms were slick as I reached for the pull cord. The ladder descended with a groan, revealing a yawning black hole. I hesitated, the poker trembling in my grip, before forcing myself to climb. The attic smelled of dust and mildew, its corners swallowed by shadows. I swept the beam of my phone's flashlight across the space, but it revealed nothing out of the ordinary, just old boxes and forgotten furniture. And then I saw it. At the far end of the attic, someone had scrawled a message on the wall in what looked like ash. 3 words that froze the blood in my veins. Don't trust her. My mind raced. Who had written it? And who was her? Dana? Mom? Or someone else entirely? A loud crash from downstairs made me nearly drop the flashlight. I scrambled down the ladder, my pulse hammering. The sound had come from the basement. The basement door stood ajar, the darkness beyond it impenetrable. Hello? I called, my voice barely above a whisper. The only response was the faint hum of the old boiler. I crept down the stairs, every creak of the wood amplified in the stillness. The basement was cold, the kind of cold that seeped into your bones. My flashlight cut through the gloom, landing on a shattered jar of pickles on the floor. A stupid accident, I told myself, relief washing over me. Maybe the vibrations from the boiler had knocked it off the shelf. But then the door slammed shut behind me. I bolted up the stairs, yanking on the doorknob, but it wouldn't budge. Something heavy scraped against the other side like furniture being dragged into place. I pounded on the door, shouting Dana's name, but my cries echoed unanswered. And then I heard it. Laughter, soft and lilting, but undeniably malicious. It wasn't Dana. It wasn't Mom. It was him, the man from the diner. The laughter faded, replaced by a new sound, footsteps descending the basement stairs. I backed away, clutching the poker like a lifeline. The beam of my flashlight trembled as it illuminated the figure emerging from the shadows. But it wasn't the man. It was Dana. Her eyes were wide and unblinking, her face pale as death. She smiled, but it wasn't a comforting smile. It was empty, hollow. You shouldn't have come back, she said, her voice barely a whisper. What the hell is going on? I demanded, my voice cracking. Who was that man? Why? Her smile widened, but she didn't answer. Instead, she raised her hand, and I saw what she was holding. A long, curved blade, its edge gleaming in the dim light. I don't remember much after that. Just flashes. The glint of the knife as it came down. The searing pain in my side. The sound of my own screams. When I came to, I was tied to a chair in the dining room, my head pounding and my vision blurry. The table was set for Thanksgiving, but the sight was grotesque. The centerpiece wasn't a turkey, but something far worse, something I couldn't bear to describe. Mom and Dana sat at either end of the table, their faces eerily calm as they sipped from glasses of deep red liquid. Welcome home, Dana said, her voice syrupy sweet. I struggled against the bonds, my heart racing. Why are you doing this? Mom leaned forward, her expression serene. Because it's tradition, Jake, and family always comes first. I don't know how I managed to break free. Adrenaline, maybe, or sheer terror. The rope snapped, and I bolted, ignoring the searing pain in my side. Behind me, I heard their voices calling, calm and measured, as if they knew I couldn't outrun them forever. But I did. Somehow, I made it to my car and peeled out of the driveway, the tires kicking up gravel. In the rearview mirror, I saw them standing on the porch, watching me go. Smiling. I didn't stop driving until I reached the city. Even now, I can't shake the feeling that they're watching, waiting for the next Thanksgiving when I'll be expected to return. Every time I close my eyes, I see their faces, their unnatural calm, their hollow smiles. But what haunts me most is the voice I heard as I sped away, faint but unmistakable. You'll come back, Jake. They always do. I didn't go to the police. How could I? What would I even say? That my sister and mother had transformed into something monstrous? That they'd planned to kill me, or worse, over Thanksgiving dinner? The story was too absurd and there was no proof. No one would believe me. Instead, I moved as far away as I could, settling in a crowded apartment in a city where anonymity was my only solace. I cut off all contact with Dana and Mom, ignoring their calls and emails. Every Thanksgiving, I made sure to be surrounded by people, booking a spot at a bustling restaurant or volunteering at a shelter. Anywhere I could feel safe. But the fear never left. Last night I dreamed of the old house. It was just as I remembered it, except for the windows. They were blacked out, like eyes closed to the outside world. In the dream, I stood at the edge of the driveway, unable to move as the front door creaked open. Dana stepped out first, her expression serene, the same empty smile on her face. Behind her was Mom holding the curved blade. And then the man, the stranger from the diner, emerged from the shadows, his eyes glinting with malice. "Come inside, Jake," Dana called, her voice sing-song and sweet. "Dinner's ready." I woke up drenched in sweat, my hands trembling. But when I reached for the lamp on my bedside table, I froze. Sitting there, as if it had always been, was a small folded note. I unfolded it with shaking fingers, the words scrawled in ash-black letters. "You can't escape family. See you soon." Now as I write this, I'm sitting in my apartment, every light in the place blazing. I've locked the doors and windows, barricaded them with furniture. My phone lies useless on the counter, its battery dead, though I'd charged it fully this morning. The street outside is quiet, unnervingly so. The usual city sounds muted, as if the world itself is holding its breath. And then it comes. A knock at the door. 3 slow, deliberate raps that send a chill down my spine. I don't need to look through the peephole to know who it is. Somehow, I know they've found me. I can feel their presence, their patience, waiting for me to open the door. The knocking continues, each sound heavier than the last. I want to scream, to tell them to go away, but my voice catches in my throat. Deep down, I understand the truth. There's no running from this. There's no escape. Thanksgiving is about family, after all. And no matter how far you go, family always finds you. The knocking has stopped now, replaced by the faint sound of footsteps in the hall. I think I hear Dana's voice, soft and lilting, calling my name through the cracks in the door. I'm not sure how much time I have left. Maybe they'll get bored and leave. Or maybe this is it. If you're reading this, don't go back for Thanksgiving. Don't go back to the old house, no matter how much they beg or guilt you. Because once you sit at that table, once you share their meal, you become part of the tradition, and they never let you leave.